Needing to control things that are out of our control is the breeding ground for anxiety. When we get overly focused on needing someone to be a certain way, something to be a certain way, the world to be a certain way, people to think a certain thing or treat us a certain way, or things to work out the way that we want them to. But all of those things are out of our control. And so when we get so fixated on them or that person or that thing needing to be that way, it creates anxiety in us because there's part of us that thinks we have to control it, but the other part of us knows that we can't. And we think that in order to feel okay, that thing needs to be certain so that we don't have to worry, so that we don't have to stress, so that we don't have to wonder, all of those tied into anxiety. But because we can't control it, we never get the outcome that we're looking for, which is that peace of mind, which is that feeling more calm and settled because we're trying to do something that cannot be done. So what do? If we can't control these things in order to ease our worry, our dread, our fear, our anxiety, then what can we do? So today we are going to look at exactly that. We are going to focus on something called the locus of control, specifically our internal locus of control, which is the things that we are in charge of, that we can control, and really looking at the things that we cannot control and moving into acceptance around that. And then we're going to look at what we can do to influence the outcome that we want without relying on having to control it, which we often cannot. It's a really good exercise. I've got pen to paper. You can go through it with me. You can do this exercise right after for whatever it is that you are worrying about that you can't control. And we're going to look at how to ease that worry, that anxiety about it, doing this really simple exercise. It's going to help you a lot. But first, if you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you are back again, it is always good to have you here. My name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, a speaker, and the author of my book, Drive Your Own Darn Bus, that you can grab on Amazon. And I help heart-centered humans think better, feel better, and live better so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. So I want to invite you right now to think about that thing that you are feeling really anxious about, whether it's the state of the world or whether or not a friend hasn't messaged you back and what that means, or whether it's an adult child that you are having some relationship issues with. Maybe there's some alienation, maybe there's some distance. Maybe it's an adult child who is not making choices for their lives that you are feeling really good about, that maybe even that you're worried about. Whether it's what is going to happen at this event that you have coming up, whether or not you're going to get this promotion, whether or not you're going to get this job, what your coworkers think about you, how to get better friends. Maybe you're feeling lonely and it feels out of your control having a really good group of friends, people that you can count on, rely on, feel close to. And it's bringing you anxiety not having control over these things or even not having these things. So what do? Let me show you. For this exercise, you are going to get the biggest bang for your buck by actually grabbing a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil and writing this one out. Research shows that when we sit down, pen to paper, and write things down, it creates a different experience in our brain. And often things connect a lot easier. We get a lot more clarity than just sitting and trying to think it through. So grab your pen, grab your paper, make 3 columns, just like this. We've got 1, 2, 3. And in the first column, we are going to write in my control. So that internal locus of control. And in the third column, we're going to write not in my control. So these are things outside my locus of control. And in the middle, we are going to write I have or can influence. So I'm going to give you an example. Not sure why I put that dot there, but All right. I'm going to give you an example. And this is actually an issue that's been coming up a lot. A lot of people have brought this one to me, especially during this time of year, is strain in parent-child relationships. So strain in the relationship between a parent and an adult child. And typically the adult child is creating distance from the parent, not talking to the parent. There's strain, there's conflict, there's something going on there. And so the issue at hand is strain in parent-adult-child relationship. Okay. So what is not in your control about this situation? Whether child talks, why am I missing letters? To me, how much my child talks to me, how they feel or think about me. And just thinking, what are those things that are out of your control in this situation? And basically, it has anything to do with your child's thoughts, behaviors, or thoughts, feelings, or behaviors. So you can't control what someone else thinks, you can't control how someone else feels, and you can't control what someone else does or the actions they take or don't take. But what is in your control is how I feel, how I show up, how I think, the effort I make, right? Being really mindful of when there is interaction. How do I be supportive? How do I be loving? How do I not stir things up? How do I make sure I'm not saying things that are going to be hurtful or passive aggressive or laying guilt trips, right? So a lot of that, how I show up, how I engage, whether I'm texting them, inviting them to things. So those are the things that are in my control, but I don't have control over how they receive that, how they respond to that, how they take that. What I do have is I have influence, right? I can invite them into conversation, constructive conversation. I can apologize. I can ask them to share how they're feeling. I can, I'm having a hard time speaking and writing at the same time. I can put in effort to show I care. I can tell them I love them, right? I can have that influence over them. I can show up in loving, supportive, open, honest, authentic ways that aren't passive aggressive, that aren't aggressive, that aren't laden with guilt or with any kind of yucky statements. I am in charge of how I show up in this relationship. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do a little bit of a bigger one. Let's look at the anxiety that's caused by the state of the world. Whatever's bringing you anxiety about that, if it's the environment, what's going to happen in the future with our environment, with any kind of conflict that's happening in other parts of the world, with what's happening with politics in whatever place that you live in that's causing you anxiety about anything to do with that. So let's look at what's not in my control. What is in my control? And my influence. And my orange is running out. So what is not in my control? What is not in my control is the future. try as we might, the future is never fully in our control. What else is not in my control? How other people act, vote, what they stand for, how they think, feel, show up. I don't have any control over that stuff. Other things that are not in my control are things happening in other countries. Right? The choices that are going on in there, the things that are happening in there, even in my own country, I don't have control over the thoughts and actions direct control over the thoughts or actions of the people in my government, in my community, in, what is happening in those realms. But what I can control is how I show up. I can control what I focus on. Right? I can focus on all the things that are terrible things that are happening in the world, or I can focus on what do I want to do today? How do I want to show up today? What impact do I want to be making in my life, in my community? What do I want to be bringing to the table? Those things are all in my control. What I focus on, how I show up. I can focus on how I spend my time, my energy, my resources. Those are all things that are in my control. And then my influence, I absolutely have influence over all these things. I can get involved in grassroots movements. If there's a cause that I want to see changes in, if there's a political issue that I want to have some influence over, that I want to be involved in, that I want to be having a say over, then I can get involved. I can spend my time and my resources doing things that are going to help move the needle in the direction that I want it to be going, insofar as things in my own home, in my community, in my state or province or area that I live in my, with government. I can be involved in influencing how other people vote, how the things that other people get involved in, the causes that I educate myself around that I can share with other people. All of those things are within my influence. So conversations I have, information I share, all those things are within my influence. And so really just looking at any kind of situation that we're in, what is not in my control, what is in my control, and what can I have influence over? Those are all things that I need to be aware of, that I need to be honest with myself about, and spending a lot more time in this realm than in this realm. We don't want to be focusing so much on the things that are out of our control and getting ourselves all worked up about them. Because we know keeping ourselves in state of fear or anxiety or worry is not a plan that gets us to or even close to the outcome that we want. Yes, often we do not have direct control over many different outcomes, many different circumstances, many different situations, or any people in our lives. But there are always things that we are in charge of, that we are in control of, and there are ways that we can influence. Like the saying goes, we don't always have control over our circumstances, but we always have choices within them. So spending our energy focusing on all the things that are out of our control and really feeding that anxiety is just going to keep us paralyzed, stressed, and anxious. But if we use that fear, if we use that worry, if we use that anxiety to fuel constructive action, to be like, this is obviously, this anxiety or this worry, this fear is an indication. It's just information. Emotions are just information. So this is information that there's something here that I care about. something here that's important to me. So if that is the case, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to make my chart. I'm going to look at the things that are in my control, that are out of my control, and the things that I have influence over, because that is what I can do. That is what is going to be helpful. That is what is going to help influence the outcome. And even if I can't do too much to influence the outcome, I'm going to focus on the things that are in my control. And what is always in my control is what I think, how I feel, how I show up, what I choose to focus on, what emotions I choose to feed into, where I decide to direct my attention. All of those things are in my jurisdiction and up to me. But now if you're like, Julia, that's great, and I'm going to do that exercise, and I know that it's going to help me, but I've been feeling lately like the anxiety has been bigger, the stress has been more, the worry has been coming on stronger, and I feel like I need something more to kind of deal with these big surges of emotions that have been showing up, then I've got you. You can get my Sensitive Person's Guide to Handling Big Feelings. In there, it explains what's going on when we have these big feelings, and then what to do to process them. What to do to really help to calm ourselves when we are having really big feelings come up that start to feel overwhelming, or like we can't just do like an exercise to get ourselves through. Get that Sensitive Person's Guide to Handling Big Feelings. It's going to walk you through really simple, straightforward, but really effective ways to process through and get to a place of more calm and peace and groundedness around whatever it is that you are feeling. Grab that, do the exercise, in my control, not in my control, what I can influence, and let me know how it goes in the comment section below. Until next time, take good care of yourself, take good care of those around you. Bye for now.